Yo, JD here, and as you can see, we are going to be having another bit of a discussion video here today. This time, funny enough, it is not about the game, but F1 itself. And the reason for this is that actually, for quite some time now, I really felt like F1 hasn't felt like a sport, but more of a business. And don't get me wrong, I understand they need to make money. But it really seems that the history, the legacy, and what fans actually want doesn't seem to matter anymore. So in this video, I really want your opinion on F1, how it can be improved, and what you think the current issues are. A trigger for this video was actually watching the opening round of the 2024 season at Bahrain last weekend, and yes, I think most people can agree it was pretty underwhelming, and I think that's being very nice. A race poll, as you can see on the screen here, voted by the fans, showed that this was the lowest rated Bahrain Grand Prix since 2014 in terms of enjoyment and actual overtakes. And I think these comments sum things up pretty nicely. Although having a dominant car does take away from the thrill of the championship, this is something we have seen before plenty of times, and isn't particularly uncommon with F1, with the eras such as Schumacher, Hamilton, and now seemingly Verstappen. As much as we want a battle for the championship, that is F1 in a nutshell, and I don't think really the blame can be placed on the teams who actually nailed the regulations. The issue I have, once again, like I said at the start of this video, is that it just doesn't feel like a sport anymore, and very similar to the game, now a business designed to extract as much profits as possible. As you can see here, there was actually a 32% drop in viewership from the F1 22 to 23 season. Despite this though, the profits have actually increased from $2.6 billion to $3.2 billion. This has been created by having a longer calendar, a huge increase in the US audience through the Drive to Survive, which I also have to mention has this year had a pretty significant drop in terms of the viewership from 23.2% from last year's figures. And with Drive to Survive, let me know what your thoughts are on this, because I did watch the first couple of seasons, I have watched this season. I just feel again that there isn't really much quality, and it isn't designed for true F1 fans, true racing fans. It is simply a ploy to get as many new audience members as possible, to get as much profit as possible, and making up dramas off the track in order to create hype for the season where there isn't actually really any dramas. And quite often they take team radios from completely different Grand Prix, put them on the same weekend, and pretend that drivers are actually having an issue with each other. I feel again similar to issues I have with the game and the communication the developer has with their community. F1 with their community, I just feel again it is just quite insulting the intelligence of their viewers and just disrespecting the sport in general. I think again, money is important, business is important, but I feel it's very important as well to really provide quality, provide a legacy, provide a history for their fans, for their audience. And it just seems again that they're already thinking about the profits in the present time, not about the past, not about the future, because really a day soon it won't really be their problem anymore. But the question is why, and how can we make F1 feel like a sport again? Here are a few topics, and of course I'd love to hear what you think needs to be done. I think one of the first ones is potentially getting rid of the cost cap. And I know this was introduced in order to actually try and make the field closer, but many people argue that many of the teams actually know the solutions that they need to do. They simply just don't have the finance to build them. The cap was put in place to bring things closer, but perhaps this could be why it's actually gone the other direction. The second is maybe too many restrictions on the regulations, allowing solutions that could actually be created to create a more competitive field. Things such as the ride height being raised, the ground effect really not being utilised, actually allow open restrictions where new solutions can be made, such as the gas system we had in the past, the double diffuser. Well, we're being very, very limited on these restrictions. There is really only so much you can do for teams in order to close the gap. So potentially making it much more free-flowing in terms of these regulations. One thing for me, and again, this isn't disrespecting the drivers because I know there is still an insane amount of skill involved, but are the cars too easy to drive? With the current technology, we are seeing far less driver errors. No doubt to skill once again, but should we be giving cars to drivers that are actually harder to drive? As we saw in the older era, again, we have seen dominance from the Schumacher, the Hamilton era, but back in the 80s, the 90s, maybe even the 2000s, it was much more prone to driver error. The cars were notoriously actually a little bit more difficult to control and drive, and I felt like a lot more of the driver skill was involved. This could also be argued now with the car's reliability. Are they actually becoming too reliable? And again, I hate it when I've been doing league racing and a DRS fails, you get damage or something like that, but sometimes it does provide a little bit more excitement and not only trying to create the fastest car, but actually a reliable car as well. Things such as the sprint weekends, I feel for me doesn't really add true value, and again, just feels like a ploy to sell more tickets. And although this will probably never happen, I would love to see F1 create their own chassis and engine. This of course would mean no longer technically having the manufacturers, but imagine the racing if every car was equal and it's purely down to the setup and driver. And again, I know this is 99.9% never going to happen, and that is the beauty of F1. It's about the innovation, the technology, the development, and which team can really develop this the most. But look at F2, look at F3, look how good that racing is. They are using the same chassis, same engine. Things such as IndyCars, well, arguably are more exciting than F1 right now. Imagine if we had this for F1, and I know it'd be a huge change in their development, their history, but imagine every driver having the same car, same engine. That would really be a spectacle to watch. But after last week's race, I honestly don't really feel too good for F1 this year, and I think again most people agree that it was probably one of the most underwhelming season openers we have ever had. So fingers crossed this weekend it's going to exceed the expectations we currently already have. But really in this video, I just want to hear what your thoughts are on how you feel about the current state of F1, how it can be improved, and what actually needs to be done in order to get to where we want to be. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the Grand Prix this weekend, and I'll be catching you very soon. Peace.